Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Scripture and Song. As I was kind of alluding to earlier, today is going to be a little bit of a different episode because today marks the 2-year anniversary from when we started our original iteration, which was Sacred Songs, way back at the beginning of the pandemic. So we have Liz here with us today to kind of talk about what we've been through over the past 2 years.
You know, it's funny. Facebook has this feature of the memory feeds, and it really did pop up of the very first time we did this. And it really brought back that flood of memories of when that announcement came of all of a sudden masses are done in person. We have to shut down immediately. And it was scary when it first happened.
You know, actually, Liz and I were together, and I don't know how many of you may remember this, but what started the idea was Father Joe was on vacation, and I work at St. Christopher's and St. Paul's, and you'll have to tell me about what happened for you, but I got the call from St. Christopher's from Father Steve, and he said, "We're closed. I guess that's it. I don't know what we're going to do. Pack it in. We'll figure it out at some point." But at Paul's, Father Joe actually was on his way to Aruba. The Mass was Sunday the 15th, and I had just finished the 8 o'clock Mass, and he said, "Well, I talked to my travel agent, and my travel agent told me it's a go. I'm going to be fine, so I'm off." And he wasn't really able to be gotten a hold of with, the traveling and everything. And it was, wow, they're canceling masses. What do we do? Mm-hmm. And you were with me, and I think you can talk about how I was floored. I was quite scared. I didn't know
It was
what
very
we did.
off-putting, and we both happen to be teachers as well, and it was a very weird domino effect that week of they made the announcement of the college basketball games were canceled, and then it was the SUNY schools were canceled, and then it was the schools were canceled for 2 weeks, and then the masses were canceled. And it was, I'm not going to lie, it was scary, and it was shocking. And I remember I also work at a Presbyterian church at Riverside Presbyterian. And I got together with the pastor there, and it was, well, what do we do? And luckily, this was really when technology was starting to connect people more. So that's where we started to toy with the idea of what can we do to still worship together, even though we have to be apart.
And for me, I called Carolyn, our business manager, and I said, "I have an idea." And I, of course, bounced it off with Liz, because Liz, throughout all of this, and this is one of the things that she's done for St. Paul's, she's kind of been the constant companion throughout all of it. And I bounced a couple of ideas off of Liz, and then I said, "I think I can make this work." And way back with the first edition of this, we started with Sacred Songs. We were only able to do public domain.
Yes.
And our first song was "It Is Well With My Soul," because that song had meant so much to me in all of my time, to say, no matter what happens, even when you really are scared, it is well with my soul. But we couldn't do any of the songs that we had because we didn't even know or understand copyright.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't even have microphones for the first few. For the first few, it was just a cell phone on the music stand of the piano, and It was just recording us nice up and close.
Well, in that first iteration, way back then, we had reflections, and I can't remember, were reflections Tuesday and Thursday?
We did reflections 2 days a week, and then we did sacred songs another 2 days a week, and it would always essentially be about a 5-minute video, just doing a quick hymn and then sharing some words of positivity.
Well, and I think that's what we needed at the beginning of this. And again, it's so strange to think that it's been 2 years, but it was so scary at the time. And we had no idea what we were doing. And, you know, I remember at the beginning, and for those of you who've been with us for all that time, how rough the sound was.
We played with many things, and I can tell you that Sean gave me quite a few white hairs out of anxiety and out of frustration because he just wanted to keep perfecting it. And he really, you cared about this so much that you toyed with different cameras, different angles, different sound things, different sound boards. Keith helped too when we moved it over to the church from the original music room. And Keith came in. He runs the St. Paul's Ensemble, if you don't know Keith. And he helped us figure out how to do sound through an iPad versus a phone. And it just kind of was this big labor of love because it's very important for us to be together, and the Paul's community itself is quite important to us.
Well, and I guess, you know, taking today, talking about some milestones. I mean, there was the milestone of the first time that we did it, but it was also, you know, we had another milestone. We started because Father Joe was away with, you know, which was probably a little corny on my part, but the idea of dishing with Deacon Parker, because we didn't know what to do. And it was, well, that's the one thing. And whenever we were filming anyone else, you know, it was, I'm going to stand as far away from you as possible. Mm-hmm. You can be over there. Even for the masses, for the longest time, you know, Father Joe and I weren't even close together. But we bought so many microphones, and then Easter Sunday was the first time that we filmed an actual mass. Mm-hmm. And it was so bizarre.
Well, and I think something that people don't understand, and what's kind of cool about reflecting on this, is we can kind of give you a little look as to what happened behind the scenes. And the first time you go into an empty church for mass, and it's just you and the priest or you and the pastor, it's very weird because we're trying to pray together, we're trying to all kind of work together, but it's this empty awkwardness. And kind of like you get more and more used to a phone being on you at all times, or you got used to those Zoom conference calls. We had to get used to the camera, and it's, all right, am I looking here? Am I looking at you? Am I looking at the camera? It's just a very different feel. And then when they started bringing people back in, it was also a different feel because you get used to the silence, the camera, and then it changed again. And it's just a very bizarre thing that if you haven't been on the working side of church, you may not have gotten that part.
Well, and two, we always kept trying to improve, like Liz said. You know, there were some at the beginning where it was like, oh, the piano's too loud, I can't hear you. And the first song that we said, okay, let's try and bring microphones in here, was By the Waking of Our Hearts. Mm-hmm. And Liz played a beautiful flute part, but that became, you know, important. But it was strange because you also had this dichotomy at the same time as we started moving forward and learning how to do more digital things. I will never forget this. I bought a camera to actually do live streaming for the church, and it's what we've been using since, and it's had varying degrees of, oh, I've mastered it, oh, I want to try something new. But I bought the camera, and I bought it the end of June 2020, and then it was the next week, oh, by the way, everyone can start going to church. And I said, oh, well, the pandemic's done, why did I buy this camera? Little did we know. I mean, we were 3 months into it thinking, oh, well, the end is almost here. We're back to normal. And I remember being like, well, there goes all the digital stuff. Do we even bother? But there's been such a great swell of support. I mean, you people who've been parishioners for Paul's, and even those of you who have been guests, whether you're from Christopher's or Riverside or any other church, we got letters from people who had very small connection to St. Paul's, who were affected and who watched the videos and just felt like someone was reaching out to say, I care about you and I worry about you, and the support that we got and the encouragement, because it was so hard sometimes to keep going.
And there were some letters that we got, and we're getting choked up remembering it. We really tried our best to help, and some of those letters that people took the time to write thanking us helped us. And those of you who reached out, or who didn't reach out and just watched, being able to do things like sacred song, like scripture and song, and all the many different forms, and making the graphics, it gave us a purpose, and it made us feel like we were putting some good in the world. And the people who took the time to thank us, it helped us in our darker moments. So we do appreciate that.
And it's kind of been nice because St. Paul's kind of, I still think today, because we made the decision to try and keep up with it, and we've had varying moments of success, and I don't know, Liz can talk about it a little bit, and I can talk about it too, that it's been so strange having to go back to real life, while at the same time trying to keep up with some of the digital stuff. And we've had some more successful months, and then we've had other months where it's like, I can't film, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to offer anymore. But I think we've gotten through that phase because the amount of support and the amount of people who have said it means something. And we've been so lucky to be able to have interviews with Father Joe. We have so many upcoming interviews with other people. This is such a nice way for you to get to know the people in your church and the people who help out at your church, because we can't sit and talk to all of you, but this is a way that we can reach all of you. And it's just, I will never be able to put into words the amount of gratitude I have for all of you who have supported St. Paul's. And St. Paul's has been there in my life through so much. I've been there for almost 12 years. And to see you all care as much as I care, and to have it reciprocated has been one of the best blessings I could ever ask for.
Well, and St. Paul's is actually where I learned how to participate in church music. It's where I was trained to be a musician. Sean actually mentored me, and back when we played the organ still up in the organ loft, I was up there learning it too, and I've been very grateful for it. One of the other interesting things that kind of happened throughout this that I don't think we really touched on is, obviously there's the church services and the masses, but the funeral and wedding receptions, since we've started going digital, have been wonderful, because we've actually had people reach out who are able to not necessarily travel, especially with all the COVID restrictions for varying points of the pandemic. But we've had people from Florida, California, Canada, different countries, who are able to be a part of a funeral in live time, which is so nice when we're able to pray together from different points of view and different parts of the world.
Well, and I guess that's something that I hope we bring into the future. One of the old sayings that, and I know I've said this a few times over everything, is you should never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think in some ways we don't have that same sense of unitedness. Having people who were close to you through the whole time, who spent that time with you, they can tell you at the beginning, it was so strange. Mm-hmm. Like, Liz and I were together and we had a small pod. Remember that phrase from really at the beginning, where it was the pod of friends that you had, the only people that you saw, and you were completely isolated from everyone else. But driving, and the rare occasions you went out and there wasn't a car anywhere.
Doing the nightly walk.
We would go, yes, we definitely, we went on a lot of nightly walks. There was one point where I even rode my bike to Christopher's a lot because you just had nothing. But there was such a sense of, oh my gosh, we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. And, as the time has passed, I think we've lost a little bit of that.
You almost miss it, which is a terrible thing to say in some ways, but I think that COVID fatigue has done a lot to a lot of people. I think that our patience has been tried one too many times. I think people are eager to get back to the normal or the life pre-2020. And in that, we've talked a lot about sharing that light of Christ with one another. We've talked a lot about being patient. You never know what someone's going through. And I think that we've all been at fault for being a little too impatient or a little too quick to anger, a little too quick to judge. And at the end of the day, whether you're someone who's still wearing a mask when you walk to church, whether you're someone who is really excited at the thought of vaccines for younger kids, or you're a little nervous about the vaccines for younger kids, I think at the end of the day, we really just need to remember that we all have gone through a traumatic experience together. And the only way we're going to come out of it as stronger people, better people, or at least more compassionate people is if we remember that we are in this together.
And that's why we want to keep doing this. We want to be able to keep doing this as long as we can, because whether one person watches or 50 people or the big milestone for us was Fly Like a Bird, which was watched over 1,800 times. Who knew?
It's a beautiful song.
But who knew that
I know
it would matter that much? We want to give. We want to be a part. And because of you, we're able to. You know, and hopefully this chapter of it being so restrictive and so scary is finally behind us, because even should new variants come or new things, we know how we can be together. We know how we can be with each other, and we know that matters. Having it taken away for so long. You know, there are still people who are a little afraid of coming to church, and when they do, I'm so happy that I've been able to be back. I can be with people. And what a beautiful thing when you couldn't. You know, something as silly as eating at a restaurant, going to a play, going to Shays. We lost so much, and we got through it. We're here. And we couldn't be more grateful to be with better people. To share with more loving, more kind, more giving people than the people of St. Paul's.
You know, just 2 weeks ago, we took a moment at the end of Mass, and we forgot to mention that Allie joined us during the pandemic as well on Saturdays, that we added a third voice who also volunteered with a lot of our streaming stuff. But we took a moment at the end of church and just were taken aback by how many people were there, and it was the first time it felt like a real Mass. It had people, I don't want to say wall to wall, but it was full. And there's a different energy there. And when we all pray together and we all sing together and people are leaving and talking to one another and just joy-filled. And I know that this world is a very scary place right now. And it's a very sad place and bleak place at many times. But taking that hour or sometimes 40 minutes together, I really think it helps, and it's something that I actually look forward to the point I leave my one job and I come and I'm 10 minutes late each time, but I do make it there because it is important to be there. And the reason why I choose St. Paul's as my volunteer place is the people at St. Paul's are just different. There's a genuine kindness and a genuine thirst for giving and helping at this church, and I feel so blessed to be a part of it.
So thank you for joining us for this little bit of different kind of retrospective and love letter, I guess you could say, to you. Over the next week, we're going to still continue with our usual scripture and song and go back a little bit more to the normal format for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But we'll also be posting a lot of retrospectives, our old videos from the beginning. Not to, go back into it and be like, oh yeah, let's relive, but to take the moments that mattered and to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for helping us. And thank you for supporting this family, this church. It means so much to so many people, and the gratitude that you've given us, we hope to only be able to return someday.
Thank you.